happy to have with us tonight two representatives of the Boston Fire Department. We have the Boston Fire Marshal, Deputy Chief Jack Dempsey, and we also have Lieutenant Tom Murray, you know this Irish name. Of the Fire Investigation Unit, and they have both been on the job 32 years. They have a lot of wisdom to share with us tonight, so I will hand the meeting over to them. Thank you.
So thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. It's freezing out. Nice being in here where it's warm. Anyways, Mary had asked us to come down and talk in light of the fire on Hanover Street, and last year on Christmas morning we had a fire on Hull Street. Fortunately, nobody got hurt that night, but Hanover Street was another story. So let me tell you a little bit about the construction in the North End and what you're dealing with. The North End is very old. The buildings are, not a lot of new buildings in here, so they were built with an older code, the building code, and the building code and the fire code kind of mix a lot. There's a lot of overlap. But between both codes, even though the buildings were built a long time ago, there's still a lot of fire safety already built into it. For instance, firewalls. The building on Hanover Street was had 3 apartments. How many on each side? 4 on each side. Yeah. But it was separated by a firewall, which runs up and basically makes it 2 separate buildings. So the beauty of it was that the fire, even though as tragic as it was on the right side of the building, there was absolutely 0 damage to the left side of the building. The firewall worked just the way it's supposed to. And provided nobody pokes a hole through it for whatever reason, running wires or whatever, as long as it stays intact, it's going to do the job. One of the other items that in the North End that you'll see a lot is fire escapes. A lot of them, some of them will go to the ground, some won't. That building, for instance, has party balconies. Now, anybody know what a party balcony does? You were here the other night, don't tell them.
We used to call them connecting balconies, which sounds a little
yeah, but that's
more neutral than party balcony.
Yeah, but that's exactly what they're doing. So it spans. What it does is it spans the firewall. So part of the balcony covers windows on the right side, and you can come out your window and go over and cross by the firewall and enter the left side, and that should be your way out. They don't go to the ground. That's a security measure too. So the windows are not supposed to be locked, but you know what? Even today, people lock them, whatever. But if you know the person, there's a way to get out. If you're on that balcony, you should be okay if you move to the other side. So some of the other features. So let me just explain means of egress. So every apartment should have 2 means of egress. One would be the front stairs that you go out the door and you come down. Then the second one would be, it could be that party balcony or a rear stairwell or a fire escape. The important thing is not to block those. Sometimes people around here maybe, and I'm not just saying the North End, but it's everywhere. They don't even look out their back windows, so they don't know the fire escape is there. They don't know how it works. They don't know. They don't think of a second way out. So what do? They I don't have a good view, so I move the dresser and I put it in front of the window. Or, you know, I don't have room, I put the bed in front of the window, you know. You don't want to do that. So, a couple of things, you make a plan. Everybody should make a plan on how to get out of their house safely. That's the very first thing to do. Second thing is to practice that plan. Walk through it, whatever. Has anybody been in a fire before?
Yeah.
In their house? So
10 years ago.
you can, when a fire starts, it goes quickly, and that's not the time to start planning. You only have a few minutes to get out because of the furniture these days are made differently, and fire just goes a lot quicker and hotter. So once that fire alarm goes off, you need to react to it and get out of the building. When you're leaving the building, you want to shut the door. A lot of times people will leave the door open, and you leave the door to the apartment open. By the way, apartment doors should have closures on them. So if you don't have one, speak to your landlord. They should be closing behind you, but some of them don't. Older buildings may not have them, but they're supposed to have them. So make sure your door closes behind you, because what you're going to do, if you're on the lower floor and you leave the door open, all the smoke and then the fire is going to come out the door and go right up the stairs. Now, if somebody's upstairs and they didn't respond to the fire alarm going off right away, and they waited, oh, it's so-and-so cooking again, you know, or burning toast or whatever, they don't respond quick enough, and they finally open the door, and now all the smoke and heat has come up the stairwell. They're not gonna be able to get out, not without a lot of terror. It's very scary being in those situations. If you want an idea of how it is, close your eyes and try to get out of the building. That's without any heat or choking. So, and that's what you see, because when it gets smoky, it's zero visibility. When we go in with masks on, we can't see a hand in front of us. So we're on our hands and knees, crawling along the wall, searching for people. So it's you're not going to make it if you don't get out right away. Stay low if something happens. There is air down low to the floor. The smoke's going to rise, but that'll come down pretty quick. So you want to get out quickly. And the other thing, once you get outside, have a meeting place for everybody, your family especially, but it'd be nice if the whole building met in the same location, so you can account for everybody. When we pull up, it's a much easier feeling on my part if I know that everybody's out of the building. Now I don't have to risk people to be looking for people. I can go right to attacking the fire. Otherwise, we're searching the whole building. We're going to search it anyways. But if we know nobody's in there and everybody's accounted for, the risk for us is less. If you understand that. Same thing as far as pets go. You know what? If the pet's right there, all right, grab them, but do not waste time looking for the pet. You know, they'll either get out or they won't. We'll get them. But I would rather see you outside than have to take you outside and you and the pet don't make it. So your life is much more important than the pet, even though a lot of people treat their pets like kids. So we've had people come up, my baby's still in there, you know, and that's so we're looking for a baby and it's somebody's cat, you know. Puts us in a dangerous position. So, and I know everybody, you know, I like pets too, so I'm not trying to be insensitive, but your life is more important than an animal. Same thing with medication, we'll get your medications, you know. So the thing is, make a plan when the fire alarm goes off, smoke detector goes off, react to it, you know. And if it's somebody burning toast or whatever, then it's no big deal. That'll clear and you'll be back in. But if you don't react, you may not have the time and you may not have to react again. So do that for us and do it for yourselves. So let me explain the smoke detectors a little bit to you. So buildings, three families and more, which is mostly buildings around here, are required to have hardwired smoke detectors in the front hallways and in the rear hallways, so outside of the apartments. Hardwire, if you don't know, it's tied right into the electrical system, and so if that's happening and the smoke detector goes off on the first floor, it's going to go off on every floor. The ones in the apartment, different story. So you can have battery-operated smoke detectors in the apartment. There's a new law as of December of last year, 2016, which requires when you replace a smoke detector now, it has to be a photoelectric, 10-year sealed battery smoke detector. Now you can also have a combination carbon monoxide and photoelectric. So those are the two combinations we recommend. The other type is an ionization smoke detector, which picks up flame before it picks up smoke. Photoelectric will pick up smoke. So they're great for a smoldering fire. So if somebody's smoking in bed or just something starts smoldering, could be anything. The photoelectric will pick that up quicker and notify you sooner than the ionization one will. A lot of the false alarms you hear from like cooking, those are usually ionization detectors, so they're being disbanded. So the new ones, 10-year photoelectric. Remember that when you go to the hardware store, because they still sell the old type. Make sure you get the right kind. If you don't know, call the fire department and ask us, and we'll make sure that you get the right information. What else on the smoke detectors? Any questions on that?
I have another one. My memory is that carbon monoxide detectors were to be mounted low, whereas the smoke detectors obviously are to be mounted high. Do I recollect incorrectly, or has that changed?
No, you can have a combination up above. That's the way to go, because then you're not checking two different detectors. And you're right, though. I think when they first came out, a lot of them would just be plugged into the outlet, and they were low. They were low. So if you have fossil burning fuel, you have oil, you have gas. That's where you're going to have the issues with carbon monoxide. But you can also have a car parked in the alley next door, your windows open, whatever. There's a lot of ways. So get the combination ones, and you're all covered. The beauty of the 10-year sealed battery ones is you don't have to change the battery every year or every 6 months. You should test them once a month. All it is pushing a button, make sure it beeps. At the end, if there's a lot of people burning food or whatever, and they're going off a lot, they're not going to last 10 years. So that's kind of, I would rather call them long-lasting batteries than 10-year batteries, because I don't think they'll last. But anyways, there is an end-of-life signal on them, so it'll start chirping or whatever. You'll hear it chirp every 15 seconds or whatever, and it'll drive you crazy for a day until you'll be going, where is that? What is that? And be looking all over the house for it. Come to find out, it'll be the smoke detector. The battery will be bad. Even the ones you have now, you might have heard that chirping, and that means the battery's dying, or the smoke detector's no good. So if one smoke detector goes bad, my recommendation is change them all at the same time, because then you'll be on the same sequence. You won't, you won't be changing one this month, and then 2 months later you're changing another one. It'll get very confusing. So the ones you have up now, though, the battery operated ones, depending on the manufacturer, they might be good for 5 years. It might be 10 years. So they're all different, but all the new ones coming out are 10 years.
Dave Kubiak, Cleveland Place. I've got some questions about the building and the specific building, the specific fire, but I'm asking these questions because if there were problems at that building, or difficulties with you being able to get to the fire, to get to the people in that building, then those difficulties may exist, or the non-compliance issues may exist all over the neighborhood, including in my building. So I'd like to know, you talked about second egress. Was there second egress in that building? Was there second egress for the individual on the top floor who passed away? That's my first question, but I got some others as well. Was there second egress?
There was.
But what?
It was an exercise. Once again, I don't know for sure, but I don't know what was going through his mind at the time.
What was the second
Whether he
egress?
knew or not, they had a party balcony, but
Okay.
it was blocked. It was blocked.
I showed the blockage.
Block inside his apartment?
There was some furnishings, it was actually in the kitchen area, and there was some furnishings that were banked up nearby. This individual was in pretty good shape, probably could have moved that in a hurry. But things change in those emergency situations, whether it's visibility or just that not having the knowledge, knowing that the party balcony, if he had gotten out there and up to the adjacent apartment past the fire, survivability obviously would have been much greater.
That's why I'm saying it's important to make a plan, check the second means of egress, make sure the window's open, and practice it. You don't have to practice it every week, but practice it once in a while. Just, visualize something happening. If the way you normally go out is, visualize that being blocked, and now how am I going to get out? It's as simple as that. When a fire happens, if you've been sleeping, it happens, and you don't respond to the smoke detector right away, and then all of a sudden you wake up because it's going off, and you go, what is this going on? And you open the door, and all there is a wall of smoke. It's going to be very scary, and panic's going to set in, and if you haven't planned, you put yourself in a very bad position. Something
Recently,
like that does happen, though. You close the door. We're only a few minutes away. We will be there in a couple of minutes. If you're in a fire, though, a couple of minutes can feel like an hour. Trust me, we've been there, and even to us, it's like, we're waiting for the water to come. It's like, where is the water? So and it's right there. It only takes a minute, but that it feels time slows down very quickly, and
the other concern I have is being able to get to the building, to get to the backs of these buildings. And right after the fire, the firemen that were on the news were saying that this neighborhood is a maze, to use the term a maze. It's not as tight a neighborhood as it was 100 years ago. Many of the buildings are gone now, but we're starting to build back again. We're filling in parking lots, we're extending buildings, and we're going to end up with the density, or going towards the density that we had 100 years ago, which is a very unsafe density. So I'm really concerned about the new buildings and building additions and making sure that someone is reviewing those buildings for access to other buildings in case of a fire. And I think it's something NEWRA needs to start looking at as well. And in the case of that building there, I'm wondering, did the extension of the restaurant on Parmenter Street, the so-called outdoor patio extension, did that block access to the back of that building so that fire trucks couldn't get through there? That's just one, if that's the case, that's one example of building and creating or preventing access where access may have existed before. And from now on, I'm going to be looking at that with any of the building expansion plans or new building plans in the north end that come before this
Let me
group.
explain how, so in fire prevention where I work, we give out all the permitting, we do all the permitting for, we work very closely with the Inspectional Services Department. So we have engineers and we review all the plans for new buildings, and one of the main items that we look at is access. So, in a tight neighborhood like this, yeah, there's going to be, some things get tight. Jim, one
Yeah,
second.
sure.
But we don't have to always have access to the rear. So for that fire, right, had the door get shut on the way out, very survivable if you're above or anywhere else in the building.
Which door are you referring to? Which door? You said had the door been shut.
It had the door to the apartment
To
where
the
the fire originated, been shut.
So that's the second
Been
floor.
a different story, and I'm not saying anybody's at fault.
Yeah,
People, you know, you're just thinking get out or whatever, and the door might get left open, might get blocked open. There's a lot of reasons. But this is what I'm saying. On your way out, you shut the door. You tell us when you get out front. As soon as we show up, you know, fire's in the rear bedroom on the 3rd floor. Now we go into the building, it's full of smoke. That's easier for us if I know that we're going to the 3rd floor instead of going in and finding smoke. And now we have to locate where the fire is. You know, you would think it'd be easy, but it's really not that easy.
I wouldn't think it's easy.
So, but if we know exactly where we're going, we can get the line to the fire as quick as possible. And 99% of the time, we can contain it to that location.
So do you review all building permits or zoning appeals, or when does this
We're
review?
involved in the whole process. So and it's all, the code can be a little bit complicated, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but we review everything. And if somebody wants to put a building up right here next door, we would be involved with that, and we'd be making sure, do we have access to people, can people get out, you know, the whole realm from beginning to end. So,
Thank you.
the other thing with that is, you know, all the buildings didn't have sprinklers. If you're building a 3-family or more nowadays, you're required to have sprinklers. Sprinklers are a wonderful thing when they're working great. So it will contain the fire. The reliability of sprinklers and sprinklers go back over 100 years ago. They weren't used how they're used now as much, mostly for manufacturing and big mill-type buildings back 100 years ago. But since they've existed, the fully working sprinkler system has very, very low, I think I don't even know if I can find one incident where people have died where the sprinkler system has been working. They may, if they don't get out, they don't respond to the alarm, they don't get out, whatever. That's a different story, but
Talking about egress, the way that fire was, the building, a lot of these alleys and these little alleyways have put up metal gates to for security, quote unquote, which I don't believe in, but there's a metal gate there next to the Florentine. Was that an impediment for you people getting in the back of that building?
You know what, I don't think that we had any access issues.
Okay, but there are other gates, like the building on Prince Street that goes to...
I understand. And
Are those things passed on by you people?
we can get in.
Is there...
We have a big key.
I know you got the equipment, yeah, but, I mean, you know, at the same time,
I
the people get out.
understand, but there's a fine line between people feeling safe from fire and feeling secure.
Well, this is a secure neighborhood. I always ask.
I'm just saying, you know, you feel one way, somebody over here might feel a different way,
I know.
or you get new people in the neighborhood. I don't know, but that's something in a neighborhood like this we can't control. It's just like grills on rear porches. They're not allowed, but you know, you go to some neighborhoods and I look down the back porches and there's 100 of them, and it's like, now we got to go to every house and say, take them down. They take them down, we drive away, and they put them back. So, same thing with the gates on every door, on it, you know, to the alleys. Some are open, some have gates. It's a constant battle. You know, so.
Can you explain, at some places, in other neighborhoods as well, you see the rope ladders in higher elevations. Can you speak to those about safety issues and whether or not that they are in fact are allowed, or does that just give people peace of mind?
So rope ladders as a means of escape.
Correct.
Like from,
the really heavy ones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of anybody in here that's going to go down one. They should have a fire escape. That's the building code requires certain. It depends. There's so many variables. I can't say certain buildings do and or don't have to have them, but that would be determined through the building code. And fire escapes are required to be tested. I believe it's 5 years, and that's on the owner of the building's required to have that done. So they should be tested, and a certificate's given. It's supposed to be sent into ISD and on record. So, because there's all different types of fire escapes too. You know, some with the drop ladder, some with the counterbalance ladder. It's, you know, there's a lot of different types. The party balcony. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
This is about buildings under construction. Over the past year or so, I think there's been 2 or 3 bad fires in buildings where the sprinkler system hasn't been implemented yet. What do you know about those? And
So you're talking about like the Dorchester Street?
yeah, not in this neighborhood.
Dorchester out fire?
Yeah.
So there's a trend right now to make large wooden buildings. You see them in a lot of places. I will say they can be very dangerous if something happens before they're completed. So, and that's what happened in Dorchester. The building wasn't completed, the sprinkler system wasn't turned on, and there you go. So, we have a construction safety unit, and we're constantly going out to even, let's say, they're rehabbing a building in the north end, and they're gutting it completely. We're constantly, we'll go by there, we're making sure that they have all the proper permits, which tells us that they're doing something right. We're checking them on their hot work, whether they have a fire watch while they're doing hot work. As you see, a lot of, we've had some fires in the north end, right down next to the Coast Guard base. We had one this past year on the roof. So we check all this stuff out. There's a lot of work going on in the city, so we're spread kind of thin right now. But we're doing the best we can between us and the building inspectors.
How often do you check them? So if there is
perspective, just, I don't know, my building hasn't had more, well, it actually has, already had a fire.
Yeah, we keep.
So how often do you come down and inspect means of egress and fire safety? I know you do a walk, like for instance, you open up a new restaurant or a new building gets a CO, you do the walkthrough. But how often do you do that if it's a building that hasn't had work done? I mean, yes, because apparently that building actually just did have work. So my question is, when you did the walkthrough for the new restaurant, when they previously had opened, did they do a walkthrough of the building, or did they just do a walkthrough of the business?
So the business would have been separate from the apartments. So we would have done a life safety walkthrough when a new building's built or a building's renovated, especially if it changes occupancy. We do a life safety walkthrough. We check exits, doors, fire alarm system, sprinkler system, fire pumps.
And I would never tell you guys how to do your job, but wouldn't it be wise that if you're gonna do a walkthrough, like for instance, the new El Camino is new, it's only 2 years old, or whatever, I don't even remember when it opened. But does it make sense to do a walkthrough of the entire building, since these buildings, you said these buildings are old? And the only reason I say it is because the new residents here are a little more, I don't think they're as responsible as the people you see in this room, and that concerns me, when we have a lot of young kids living in these buildings, and you do see rooftop grills, and there have been more fires in this neighborhood than I can remember. I've been looking at
I think your point is the new kids don't understand city living. So they need a little bit of
I sound like an old guy right now, but I'm just asking, doesn't it make sense if you did the walkthrough in the El Camino, right, when they opened and got their CO initially, you know, maybe, I don't know, I'm just saying maybe it's worth walking in the north end, because it's old. You just said it's an old
Yeah,
neighborhood.
no,
I know the firewalls
I
work.
hear what you're saying. We don't have the manpower to actually do that, I don't think. I mean, if we were asked to do it, we would certainly do it. And if you're a landlord and you call us and say, can you come over and take a walk through our building and point out whatever, we would certainly come. If we get a complaint, we go. Some people don't want us in the building.
No, I mean, I know landlords aren't calling you. I mean, I'm not a landlord, but I
No.
know that. And then you gotta tell them to sprinkle the building. and then-
Sometimes we go in, we find things
Yeah, I
that
got you.
people don't want us to find, and that's, not, I shouldn't say that's the risk you take, but it's a good thing if we find things that you can correct.
But if a tenant asks for that inspection, will you do that inspection?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Did you say that that building had fire alarms in it, in the hallway?
It did. There was a working fire alarm in there. But if people don't respond to the fire alarm when they go off, you may have 2-3 minutes to get out. So, the other thing is if you try to put the fire out yourself, there's more time wasted. You call us right away, we'll be there in a couple of minutes. You shut the door, you call us, you get out, you call us right away, we'll be there. You know what? You're gonna have a burnt out room or a burnt out apartment, but you're not gonna lose the whole building. If you wait, you take the chance of losing somebody's life, or you take the chance of losing the building. And the neighbor's building down here, we can lose a block. As far as young people, it's an education thing. We have a fire education unit. We try to touch with the college students. We get the younger people. We get the older people. We've done over 30,000 people this year alone. So just going out doing classes like this, similar to this. They're better at it than me, though.
I have a couple questions for you, if you don't mind. But before I ask
Only
them,
one question per person.
before I ask them, I want to thank you for coming here for the second time this week to the North End. We really appreciate the efforts and the education that you provide us. My first question has to do with the accessibility to the back of the Hanover Street fire. Was that an issue in terms of either putting out the fire or perhaps maybe saving a life or two?
I wasn't actually at the fire, so I'm not 100% sure the answer on that, but I don't believe so. I think a lot of, well, our initial attack is through the front door all the time, or the majority of the times, I won't say all the time. So had we known, second floor, I think the second floor was the fire, we would run the line right up the stairs. By running the line up the stairs, we're actually protecting everybody above the fire too.
Right.
From the fire coming out of that apartment. I don't think the access to the rear would have made a whole lot of difference in that fire.
I'm very concerned because I live on the top floor of the building. So my understanding on the Hanover Street fire was that the fire started on the second floor, which is where the open door was left behind. One of the fatalities occurred in that apartment. Someone stayed behind and tried to put it out. And the second fatality is what I'm most interested in because I understand it was someone jumped from an upper floor. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, like I said earlier, I'm not sure what was going through his mind, but I believe if he had closed his apartment door, maybe put towels or something underneath, if smoke started to come underneath the door to block it, and then open the window and then waited for us. I think, you know, he had a good opportunity to survive.
So you don't think he was forced out of his apartment because of the smoke? That determination wasn't made?
You know, I investigated the fire, and I just want to answer some questions with respect to the deceased occupant. That fire, the response time was rapid. Obviously, engine 8 and ladder 1 are down the street. Response times in the city are under 4 minutes for us. So typically, I think about 3 minutes is when you're going to get apparatus at your front door. In that particular case, the apartment was tenable. So again, we can't be mind readers about what the occupant decided to do or not do in that situation. The rear of the building, we could have accessed had there been a rescue that needed to be done. Boston is known for its ladder work throughout the country. Boston is the foremost leader in laddering buildings. And I'm not talking about the rapid ladders that are on the back of the fire trucks. I'm talking about manpower getting in to the rear of a building with ground ladders. So had that needed to be done, they rapidly would have covered the back of the building with ground ladders, despite some of the obstacles that you may have heard or seen that were back there. In reference to the gates, they just blow open those gates. There's no, believe me, they don't impede for the most part. They go right. There's enough tools and equipment and guys much younger than us that they just blow through those things. So that's really not as big of an issue.
So access wasn't an issue at all?
Access was not an issue in the rear of that building regarding the death of the occupant.
And
You used to advocate egress on the roof. When I was a kid and living on the 3rd floor, we always taught if there was a fire or smoke, don't try running down the stairs. Go to the roof and go to the next building.
Well, that would be your second means of egress.
Yeah, that's what
Obviously,
we
the first means of egress is the front stairs. You go out the stairs, down the stairs, and out the front door as quickly as you can. If you respond when that smoke detector goes off, the majority of the time you're going to be able to get out the front door.
I'm talking about an era where they weren't smoke detectors. I hate to admit that old, but
You can talk about the old North End where you could
right
go up.
up the roof.
But 30 years ago, you know, when we were first started out, the legacy furnishings, the building materials were, you know, more natural or organic. Today, you look at this room, if we were in here 30 years ago, those would be wooden tables, you know, the chairs would be different, the furnishings would be different. So recent tests that have been completed were evacuation from a building with legacy furniture versus modern furniture. Say it was 7 minutes with legacy furniture. Now you're about 2.5 minutes. So you diminished your time by less than half to get out of the building. So I can't emphasize enough, as the chief said, it just turned black acrid like that. So you just can't delay, and that's what some of our issues have been throughout the city, is delaying the response on evacuation. If you hear it, you gotta go. Again, if you have that nuisance tenant in the building that's always burning something, it's the boy who cried wolf. It's gonna be that one time when there's an actual fire in there. And going back to that situation on Hanover Street, the stairwell which led to the occupant's apartment on the upper level was utilized for evacuation purposes not long after fire companies arrived. They actually took occupants down that stairwell. So had the door been, close the door, sometimes shelter in place. We're not saying stay in your apartment, but sometimes it is easier to shelter in place. There was the party balcony, that was accessible. Cell phone, I'm trapped up here, I'm on the, fifth floor, apartment 2B, whatever it is, you let us know. The other thing that I want to emphasize is if you have difficulty evacuating because of physical limitations, whether it be elderly or whatever your limitations are, you can go into our data bank and just say, I live at 123 Main Street on the 4th floor, and I would have difficulty, whether it be a handicap situation, and they'll put it into the data bank. And as that fire truck is arriving at the building, they'll announce it on the air. Occupant in unit 3B will have difficulty. So the chief would send 2 guys right to that apartment. So if you have that, or if you know people in your building, have them call the fire alarm office and they'll put it into the database for us. So we know that there may be some difficulty getting an occupant out.
Like I said, like Tom was saying, so when we're responding, if you're the one trapped up on the 4th floor, and you went to go out the front door and you can't get out, and for whatever reason you can't, there's no balcony or whatever, you have no other way out. You open the window, get on your phone. Everybody's got a cell phone today, right? Everybody. I know I'm paying for a bunch of them with my kids, but anyways, you call 911. They'll immediately transfer you to fire alarm office. Fire alarm will call us on the radio and say, hey, you have something on floor 4 in the back of the building that's trapped. We'll know when we get there. As a chief, I don't even have to tell. I know the first ladder truck coming in, they're gonna hear the same thing. I don't even have to tell them. Those guys are immediately, their job is to rescue. They're immediately going right to that apartment to get that person. And at the same time, the engine company's running a hose to the fire area.
Now, I did warn you, I had a couple of questions.
Okay.
So before I ask them, I just want to confirm. So you're saying that access to Hanover Street Fire wasn't an issue in fatalities?
Was not an issue for attempt on the rescue in the rear of the building. There was no attempt on the rescue. The victim had already jumped.
Well, that's reassuring to hear. So there was, you had all the access you needed to that building?
Correct.
Okay.
And had there needed to be a rescue off the balconies, would have been achieved by the laddering the building in the rear, but
that's great to know.
It wasn't. There wasn't an issue at that time.
So let me ask. So if you're on the top floor, when you go home, whatever, tomorrow you look, and you can't find any other way out, you call the building department. Whatever, we'll have a building inspector out there. We'll look at the situation, and you know what? If it requires them having a fire escape or whatever.
I live in an elevator building, so there's a stairwell and there's an external fire escape, and then I'm on the top floor, but floors 1 through 4 have these balconies that connect to the adjoining buildings. Mm-hmm. I don't have the top 2 floors don't have that. So one of my 2 remaining questions is, if there's a fire on one of the floors below me and there's smoke billowing up, do I go to the roof?
Do you have 2 stairs?
There's an internal fire stair and there's an external fire escape. Which I would have access to both, but
serve your apartment?
It does.
Yeah. So take the fire escape.
Even if there's smoke coming up from below, because the fire's going to be under me, right? I'm on the top floor.
If you respond to the smoke detector when it goes off,
right,
you get a very good chance of getting out the front door.
Right. So unless I can see flames coming up from below, I should take the fire escape, is what you're saying?
Yeah. If you can't get down the front stairs, go down the fire escape.
Okay.
And if you can't,
right,
you call us or you yell out the window, use your flashlight. Every phones nowadays have a flashlight. Make sure you know how to use them. Try to signal somebody, yell, whatever, and we'll get you.
Okay, my final question, I promise, is
It's okay.
were you able to identify the causes of both the Hanover Street fire and the Hull Street Snowville fires?
The Hanover Street was, we identified that fire. It was careless disposal of smoking materials.
Yeah.
Hull Street is a little bit of a convoluted situation because of the structural integrity of the building and didn't allow us to go in and conduct an investigation. So it's a very lengthy investigation. I know it's been a year coming up on Christmas. So the final conclusion has not been determined because the building was just so unstable for us to even be in the building.
Well, they're doing renovations on the building now.
That was because we're forcing them to make it stable, I guess.
So it's an ongoing investigation?
It's at this point in time, it's an ongoing investigation. We expect to be closing it out fairly soon.
Is it considered a suspicious fire?
I can't really elaborate until the investigation is completed, it's an open investigation, and I probably is the best way to answer your question.
At the time of that fire, 4:30 in the morning, I think, roughly at that time, there was nobody in the building. Actually, I believe somebody coming over the Lincoln Bridge spotted it, or the North Washington Street Bridge, I forget which one.
Well, since most fires are started by people, the fact that there's no one in the building makes me think it's a suspicious fire.
Well, not. There could be mechanical failure,
but
electrical failure. There's a number of different.
But that has been determined, is what you're saying.
The investigation is ongoing. If I could address, this gentleman asked a question earlier about inspections, and if you know, in our world, it's the same as any other law enforcement. See something, say something. So if you see something, don't hesitate to call us. The chief has, fire prevention inspectors that will come right out. But same with grills, impeded egresses. Say something. We'd rather get out there and mitigate the situation before something happens. But please don't hesitate, especially as somebody made a comment about the new people, that aren't used to city life. We grew up in the city, and we're used to, watching out for your neighbor and making sure that, the exits were clear. That's how we were brought up. But maybe not so with some of the, the young professionals that are moving in. But if you see something that's not right, don't hesitate. We'll be glad to come out and correct it.
And so as a landlord or a tenant, whatever, one of the best things you can do is just make sure that those smoke detectors are working, and you call us as soon as possible.
I think, I didn't realize that our next speaker has actually come in and has actually been waiting for a while. This has been so helpful and so wonderful. I think we may have to stop the questions now and just thank our visitors.
Couple more questions. I have people have their hands up. I don't want to have them leave without having them answer.
Okay.
Three quick questions. Did the building, the fire in Hanover Street, did that building have automatic door closures? Second, how many buildings have the same requirement about automatic door closures?
Our building should, all doors leading to from an apartment or condo should have an automatic closure on.
And that building did not?
Then I don't recall.
The door was left to the area of origin, the apartment of origin of the fire. The door was left open.
Did not have an automatic?
Correct.
And then, the roll of the building, we can't go in every single building, and it's just.
Okay, but then the third question is, who do you call your fire escape inspector? Is that you?
Inspectional Services Department.
Wait, what?
They actually, everybody thinks fire escapes, fire department's issue. They're not, they fall under the building department.
That's great.
So, and that's fine, if you call us, we'll get them involved.
Does the fact that a building is sprinklered eliminate the need for 2 exits?
No,
Does a balcony count as an exit?
the party balcony,
No, just a little space through
Like a deck, like a roof deck or something like that?
Not a fire escape, a balcony?
Just a balcony, just a place to
Contained.
stand outside.
yeah, so are you talking a high rise, or?
Yeah,
And the high rise doesn't have 2 stairwells?
but I
I'm not
only
talking-
have one door to go through
I
to
know
get
that,
out.
but if the building has 2 stairwells, that's considered two means of egress. not from your apartment. It is from your apartment, but
Not to
Follow
go
me,
out
I
into the
can't-
burning hallway.
let's take, you're on the 30th floor. How would you, you know,
Well, I'm just wondering if it's safe to go stand outside my apartment, close the door to the apartment, stand on the
Once again, if you hear the
balcony.
alarm, you come out, you can get to one side or the other, correct? You can go to one stair or the other stair. You should have there should be two means of exit.
Is it a sprinkler building there?
Yeah, that's how I
So-
started out.
So your chances are pretty
The plus
good
with
of making the
sprinklers
alarm.
is that the fire, the majority of the time, sprinklers are gonna contain that fire to usually one, at the most, two sprinkler heads will go off.
That's why I
So if
wanted
fire
to-
happens over here, the sprinkler's gonna probably put it out, or it's gonna knock it down, so it's not gonna spread beyond this area. Sprinklers are a great thing.
I'd like to thank Chief Dempsey and